It was announced this morning that the Court has granted an application by the directors of British Steel to enter an insolvency process. Control of the company will now pass to the official receiver, an employee of the Insolvency Service, who will run a compulsory liquidation. The official receiver has made clear that British Steel employees will continue to be paid and employed, and the business will continue to trade and supply its customers whilst he considers the position of the company. In fact, employees were paid early, with the May payroll being run yesterday, through cash being advanced by the company's lenders. As the House will recall, I made a statement on the 1st of May, setting out details of a bridging facility that the government agreed to provide to ensure that British Steel was able to meet its obligations under the EU emissions trading scheme, which fell due on the 30th of April. The government provided the facility to purchase allowances worth £120 million against the security of 2019 ETS allowances, which are currently suspended pending ratification of the withdrawal agreement. Without this facility, British Steel would have faced a financial pressure of over £600 million, the ETS liability plus a £500 million fine. This would not only have placed British Steel into an insolvent financial position, but the charge attached to its operational assets would have been likely to prevent any new owner from acquiring these assets in the future. This transaction demonstrated the government's willingness and continuing willingness to work closely with all parties to secure the long-term success of this important business. Following this agreement, the government has worked intensively with the company for many weeks to seek solutions to the broader financial challenges that it has been facing. The government and individual ministers can only act within the law, and this requires that any financial support to a steel company must be made on a commercial basis. In the case of the ETS facility, this was based on the security of future ETS allowances. In order to provide liquidity to the business in the face of its cash flow difficulties, the government was willing to consider making a cash loan to the company and worked hard to investigate exhaustively the possibilities of this. However, the absence of adequate security, no reasonable prospect that any loan would have been repaid, and the shareholder being unwilling to provide a sufficient cash injection itself, meant that this did not meet the required legal tests. I'm placing in the library of the House the accounting officer's assessment of these proposals, drawing on professional and legal advice, which concludes, and I quote, "It would be unlawful to provide a guarantee or loan on the terms of any of the proposals that the company or any other party has made, or any others that we have considered. You must note that such an offer cannot be made legally, and that by making it you would be in breach of the ministerial code." The insolvency removes Grable from the day-to-day control of British Steel. Given the government's willingness to help secure British Steel's future, demonstrated in the ETS facility, and the discussions that have taken place in recent weeks, the government will work closely with the official receiver and prospective new owners to achieve the best possible outcome for these sites. The government has provided an indemnity to the official receiver, who is now responsible for the operations. We will take every possible step to ensure that these vital operations can continue, that jobs are secured, and that the sites at Scunthorpe, Skinning Grove and on Teesside continue to be important centres of excellent steelworking. During the days and weeks ahead, I will work with the official receiver, the special managers, and with the British Steel support group of trade unions, management, suppliers, customers and the local communities to pursue remorselessly every possible step to secure the future of these valuable operations. Mr. Speaker, this is a very worrying time for everyone associated with British Steel. Each one of British Steel's sites has a proud record of steelmaking excellence, and I'm determined to see it continue. Britain and the world will continue to need high-quality steel, and British Steel is amongst the best in the world. Today is a very big setback for these operations, but it is far from being the end, and we will take every step possible to secure a successful future for these vital assets, both people and plant.
Thank you. Rebecca Long-Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Secretary for advance sight of his statement. This is indeed very worrying news for the workers, their families and the communities who rely on British Steel directly in Scunthorpe, Skinning Grove and Teesside and all the way through the supply chain. At least 25,000 people will have been worried sick this morning, wondering if they'll have a job next time, this time next week. As the Secretary knows, however, the sector is critical to our manufacturing base and is strategically important for government, from procurement, from rail, all the way through to defence. It's imperative, therefore, given that the government now has some degree of control via the official receiver, that this business is stabilised and confidence is given to customers, workers and businesses right across the supply chain. The message from government today must be that British Steel is one of the linchpins of our industrial strategy, and to that end it will move heaven and earth to ensure business as usual continues. Now, it's reported that owners Grable Capital were asking the government for a loan of £30 million. The Shadow Minister for Steel asked for more information yesterday, but we were given none. Can the Secretary confirm today what the asks of British Steel were in the negotiations? Were they just the reported £30 million, or was that part of a wider package of measures to support steel production? I welcome the publication of the Accounting Officer's assessment, but can the Secretary confirm Grable Capital's reasoning for asking for a loan whilst reportedly being unwilling to put money on the table and simultaneously investing over £40 million in a French steelworks last week? The Secretary of State has said in his press statement today that he will pursue remorselessly every possible step to secure the future of the valuable operations in sites at Scunthorpe, Skinning Grove and on Teesside. And I welcome this. I also welcome the indemnity he's referred to. But can he outline exactly what other possible steps he will be pursuing in the coming days? Do they include bringing British Steel into public ownership, as Unite the Union and the Labour Party have called for? Do they include discussions with other interested stakeholders to examine options for saving the company, including with Network Rail, who procures 95% of their rails from the Scunthorpe site? It's clear, Mr Speaker, we simply can't countenance warm words and no real action, as was the case with the SSI Steelworks almost 4 years ago. The truth of the matter is that the cost of British Steel collapsing is far greater than any short-term outlay the government must make now. The Institute for Public Policy Research has estimated that British Steel's collapse could lead to £2.8 billion in lost wages, £1.1 billion in lost revenue and extra benefit payments, and reduce household spending by £1.2 billion over 10 years. This is a significant economic disturbance if the Secretary would like to dust off his state aid handbook. We know Network Rail sources 95% of their rails from Scunthorpe. Last year, Network Rail signed a £200 million contract with the company. The loss of this supply could have serious consequences for Network Rail's cost base and the quality of the steel used to maintain and upgrade the British rail network. Notwithstanding the great commitment by Network Rail to British Steel, however, we also know the government's wider public procurement of UK steel has been disappointing, with only 43% of steel used in government projects traced to firms based in the UK, according to UK Steel Analysis. So can the Secretary confirm today what steps he is taking to positively procure British steel for more of our key infrastructure projects? And finally, Mr Speaker, there is no doubt that the UK steel industry is in a difficult place. Uncertainty about future trade with the EU and the dangling prospect of no deal are having a severe impact. Domestic issues like uncompetitive electricity prices, business rates and lack of support for steel in the so-called industrial strategy are also undermining the sector's ability to compete. But UK Steel has a proud history in the UK, and there is no reason why this cannot continue. So the ball is in the government's court. They can take action now to save British Steel and support the wider industry, or they can accept that their legacy will yet again be industrial decline. On this side of the House, we know what side of history we want to be on, and I hope the Secretary wants the same thing.